There are a few foundational pillars that we focused on as a company. The number one, absolute number one, has been building consumer trust. Number two, leadership for what? I mean, leadership not just from a top line perspective, but it has to be more sustainable.
Yeah.
So focus on risk management, focus on all other aspects of business rather than just top line. I think that's important. Third thing is that we believe we've tried to stay invested and kind of invested ahead of the time on tech. But, and this is not just now. Over the years, we've always been focused on tech-led innovation, and that's helped us. And underpinning all of this is, I think, a usual issue of people and culture. If you look at the timing, this was just after the pandemic. All of us got locked down. There was panic all around. And after a couple of months of the lockdown, we started thinking that this was probably a good time to think about inorganic growth. We started looking at opportunities, and when you look at a specific target, Bharti AXA was really a very apt target for us. In terms of size, it was roughly about 22% of our size. It was doing well. It was scaling up. But it was still relatively subscale. So if you look at its business numbers, we measure our business on combined ratio. So combined ratio was a bit elevated. But if you split that, roughly 78% was loss and 42% was the expense ratio in a total combined of 120.
Yeah.
Which basically showed you that the underlying business was fine. It was just that it was subscale, so expenses were very elevated. Thirdly, there were certain distribution partnerships that they had, which was adding to our overall franchise. And lastly, and to me this is very important, we liked the culture and the team.
Everything was done virtually, but just stepping back to when people think about this sort of deal, see, globally a lot of deals happen in insurance. I think what people underestimate is people often look at financial services from a balance sheet size perspective, but you look at the volume of transactions that go through in India is of a totally different genre.
Yeah.
So when you had something like Bharti AXA and ICICI Lombard coming together, it's probably the largest deal in the insurance world in India that's ever happened so far. So I think that was one thing that was sort of, I would say, very unique about this deal. And when I tell you scale, think about it, there were 16,000 distributors that we needed to bring on together. There were 3,400 employees that were in Bharti that we needed to absorb them. And Bhargav's agenda was always to absorb them in a very gentle manner. Bring them in as a family rather than sort of make them feel that
they're new in the environment.
Yes, that was there. I think that was the second one. You just think about, we had about 3 crore sort of customer letters to send out. There were 140 branches of Bharti that we had to think about. On top of that, the product portfolios were very different. The technology systems were different. They had a different data system, we had a different data system, all of that. So as you put it all together, I would probably say, and I worked on a lot of global insurance deals historically, I would say this was done in a pretty rapid manner, in a very, very transparent manner. So building relationships with people on both sides, building trust, then delivering at speed. All of us that was done in a virtual environment. So yeah, I'd say it was pretty unique in that sense.
There were 3 key aspects that we were particularly focused on, which we felt were the 3 challenges that we had to address very, very tightly. Execution at speed in a context of uncertainty because of COVID and unpredictable lockdowns, etc. I think that was probably challenge number 1. Secondly, once we got the LD1 done, the integration effort that we put in together thereafter, I think the key objective for us was that we were bringing 2 organizations together, and our philosophy was 1 + 1 cannot be 2, it has to be much more. So we did not want to lose momentum on core business. So we had to ensure the core business carried on as BAU while we get this integration done at the pace that we set for ourselves. So we didn't want the core business to get distracted in either of the organizations. We are in a services business, and when you look at an acquisition, what is it that you're getting as a value, right? You would argue that value can be balance sheet, could be customers, could be policyholders, could be distributors. But finally, all of that boils down to the team and the people, and you had to protect the team and give them a sense of, comfort and confidence that you're coming in and we are not, there is no winner or loser here. We are coming together as two teams.
Yeah.
And, obviously in the part of the integration process, the best man will win, but it will not be driven by which organization you're coming from. It is purely based on merit. I think those three were the key, challenges that we focused on. This transaction leapfrogged us to a second position in the overall industry. So gave us a market standing improvement, which would have maybe taken us 2 to 3 years extra time if we hadn't done this transaction. Secondly, if you look at the transaction, as I said, this was roughly about 20 to 23% of our size. We paid about 7.3% of our stock to do this transaction. So there was significant value to be, delivered if we could get the synergy benefits that we talked about. And, when two organizations come in the same line of business, in a sense, there was obviously a lot of scope for synergy. And, whatever we estimated as an organization in terms of synergy, the number that we put out to the market was 200 crores. We got the synergy benefits sooner, before time.
Okay.
Plus, I think they were very disciplined about their reserving and their accounting, which was expected, but we couldn't account for it, or anticipate it, fully, which has been an additional benefit that we.
I would say 3 or 4 things. First of all, we asked the right question to start with. And we asked Bhargav really, what do you want to achieve out of this? And I think I still remember his words. He was very clear. See, I want a very smooth, time-bound, regulatorily transparent and beneficial to all deal to happen. And that's what I expect from the post-merger integration. So I think when the leadership is very clear from both sides on what they're going to run after, what they want to achieve, I think that was one great sort of a stepping stone. I think secondly, I think we drew up a joint scorecard, and I think that was pretty good for us that our scorecards were the same, absolutely the same.
What were these scorecards about?
This was all about whether we can get the synergistic value, whether we can take cost out, can we get additional revenue, how do we settle the people in, how do we look at a new joint business. We actually had a unique team. We had a bunch of industry specialists, we had practitioners, and then from our consulting business in EY, and then we have EY Parthenon, which specializes in post-merger integration. So we got a post-merger integration office as a layer on top to govern the entire project. And that governance was not only for EY, it was governing a joint team from ICICI Lombard and EY. So that was one joint team. Then looking at technology, looking at all the regulatory approvals, what are the approvals we will need, at what point will they come? If there is a delay, will we stop our work, or what will we do, how will we deal with that delay? And if there's a delay, what's the catch-up mechanism? And then, you have various streams, how do they integrate to get the value out that is there? I would say technology was a very, very big part. I think people might undermine that. But when you're doing such a big merger, imagine just, merging a general ledger, the amount of thinking we had to do. How do we bring it together?